Anyway mga kabarya, sa video nating ito i-discuss natin ang PSE Stock Update Series number 11. Ito yung during the SRO period para kay DITO-CME Holdings Corporation. Saka dito pala guys sa ating Kabarya Avenue PH YouTube channel, sinishare natin yung ating experience at dinodocument yung ating pag-aaral sa mga nakita nating pangmasang Pinoy investment at potential digital assets in investment na pwede tayong kumita kagaya ng stock market, Pag-ibig MP2 Savings and Investment Program, GCash investment, cryptocurrencies and altcoins gaya ng Bitcoin, Cardano, Dogecoin, Binance, Litecoin, Chainlink and Ethereum at iba pang pangmasang Pinoy investment. Kaya guys, kung trip at korsonada mo ng ganitong mga content, pwede mo ring pindutin yung red subscribe button dyan sa baba para ma-update ka pa ng ating mga latest na ina-upload na video tungkol sa ating pag-aaral ng mga pangmasang Pinoy investment at potential digital assets in investment naman. Alright, bago natin umpisahan guys, huwag nyo palang kalimutang basahin yung disclaimer na nasa screen ng ating video. Okay guys, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about DITO-CME in the fundamentals, kailangang naintindihan natin, lalo na kung isa tayo sa projected long-term investors ni DITO-CME. Before we put our hard-earned money into an investment, dapat alam natin ang nangyayari sa company na ito. Kung ano yung good side and the opposite side o yung weakness nito. So para sa ating mga DITO-natics, DITO holders, and DITO-CME long-term investors natin, kung ready na kayo, let's jump in.
Enablements to ensure that they get a better, they use these tools for a better lifestyle necessitates a variety and an alternative provider, and this is where DITO comes in. I feel that we have the right positioning. We have no legacy baggage of old technologies. We're brand new technologies. We're right smack into that right timing of providing services. I'd like to mention this as well. When the third telco was announced in 2018, I think we did already a big service to the public, where the incumbents have actually shaped up and improved their services, even without us getting the first subscriber as yet. And now I think there's been significant change to the market, thankfully, because of a healthier market condition.
Okay, ito yung homepage ng ginagamit kong PSE stockbroker account, ang ating Call Financial. Past week ago, sa mga gumagamit ng Call Financial account, napapansin natin sa ating homepage na nakapost sa call announcement itong live company briefing with DITO-CME Holdings Corporation this Wednesday. Naganap itong webinar ni DITO-CME with Call Financial during the middle of SRO period, dated January 12, 2022.
Now, going back to the point where we are, I think we have the right partner in China Telecom. It's one of the biggest in the world, I think 6 or 7. But more importantly, they're the purveyors of the latest in technology. Whether we like it or not, the Chinese has been leading 4G and now even 5G technologies. As of year-end 2021, itong last January lang, at year-end of the 2021, it's been reported that China already is closing in on 800 million 5G users. And certainly they're way ahead of the world in this platform and the use cases for 5G. And our partner is at the forefront and purveyor of these changes. And perhaps they're a year and a half ahead of the Philippine market. And certainly by this statement, I think we've got the right partner in China Telecom that will bring the platform, the experience, the digital experience.
At ito yung naging topic nila sa DITO-CME with Call Financial webinar, Challenging the Philippine Telco Industry, Call Conversations with DITO.
That's where we are now. So it's a matter of just coverage. Just speed, walang issue. Physics na lang. When mobile is a shared network. If you're if you're in a location where there is a cellular tower and mag-isa ka lang, you get full benefit of the throughput and juice of that network. Kung 100,000 kayo dan, you share that output amongst you, di ba? Kami, new player. There are 130, 135, if you're to believe the stats, 140 million SIMs out there shared between the incumbents, di ba? So there's an issue of congestion, particularly in some areas. Now, when we're a new player, you roll out, you open up, you're an empty bus. So you're going to be the fastest. No? Now, having said that, wala kaming issue sa speed. Kasi pag naglagay ka ng tower dyan, we're actually a starter, we're a challenger, we're eating market share away from kasi fully saturated the market, mabilis yung sa amin kasi konti pa lang ang gumagamit. Now, the challenge for us is not speed. The challenge for us of the benchmark is coverage. There will be a third audit sometime in June and July, and the telco tells us that they are confident of meeting 70% coverage by that time. And then the fourth year would be 80%, and the fifth year 84%, where all gloves are off. No? Pantay-pantay na tayo. Napagalingan na lang sa service, not only in speed but also in the experience you give your customers. Is the experience you give them expedient and convenient?
At ang nilalaman ng webinar nila, DITO-CME Holdings Corporation, the majority holder of the third telecommunications company in the Philippines, continues to make its way in the multimedia and IT space by recently announcing its plans to raise 8 billion pesos through a stock rights offering SRO. At ang mga speakers ng DITO-CME webinar, yung mga top executives nito, President and Director Ernesto Eric R. Alberto, Chief Finance Officer Joseph John L. Ong, Chief Operating Officer Donald L. Lim, and Chief Strategy Officer Niris Ramos, to hear about their outlook on the telco industry and how they plan to widen their portfolio and accelerate their infrastructure rollout in year 2022.
Let me just answer your question more directly. No? I think the way I understood it. Yeah. First off, I think, again, most people forget this. There are actually two companies. There's the operator, which is DITO Telecom, Telecommunity, and then you have DITO-CME, who is the listed entity, who is the holding company. So you have the operator who is not listed, and then you have the holding company which is listed, but does not operate. Okay. So to your question, first of all, let's talk about DITO Telecommunity. There is no plan to raise any. We have no capital raising plans at the moment. Will we? Of course, there's always that option, right? But at the moment, there is none. As I mentioned, the debt portion has already been sort of negotiated. On DITO-CME side, remember, the objective is to raise equity for DITO-CME in order for them to put the equity to fulfill their equity requirements when it's called into DITO Telecommunity. So, if the concern of the investor, which would only be at the DITO-CME level, not the DITO Tel side, is for it to be diluted, then the only issue outside the SRO, because this SRO will already cause certain dilution, right? I mean, if you don't participate, then you get diluted. That's mathematical.
And they also discuss on that webinar on how they plan to use their SRO proceeds to help them fulfill their mission in delivering the fastest mobile broadband speeds and coverage rollout in the Philippines.
The theoretical question about what happens to the Udena holdings or the DITO-CME holdings, the Udena holdings into DCME. Let's not talk about DITO-Tel. As I said, DITO-Tel will not move either way. It doesn't care as long as the Filipino counterpart remains 60%, then China Telecom remains 40%, and it's all status quo. So the only concern of the investors who are in this webinar at the moment is DITO-CME. So for all intents and purposes, whether Udena sells its stake in DITO-CME partially, materially, or all of it, has no bearing on the investor, theoretically, right? The decision point as an investor in DITO-CME is whether it believes in the investment potential or the value potential of DITO-Tel. It has nothing to do with your counter, meaning what your other shareholder does has absolutely nothing to do with you. Now, in fact, the proposed law, if you think about it, opens up the options. Whereas before, foreign funds Now, as a retail investor, we're a drop in the bucket compared to the wealth and asset that is being managed by those professional institutional funds in the US, in the UK, and even in Hong Kong. Now, whereas before they were now restricted from coming in, they theoretically can come in. Now, if I am a holder of DITO-CME shares, the potential that a institutional investor will come in is actually now higher with the passing of that law, number one. Number two, should there be an institutional investor who would be interested, unless it's willing to buy small bits and pieces in the market, he would therefore probably try to negotiate a block sale, right? If you start buying, again, if you think about it, put it in scale, even if they bought let's say a significant portion in DITO-CME relative to the asset portfolio of a typical institutional investor like Capital or Fidelity or any of those big funds, this is nothing. This is a rounding off number. It's probably petty cash. So if they came in a material way for us, but not in a material way for them, they would move the market if they bought shares in the market, which would be good for the retail investor, right? Or conversely, if they came in a big way and negotiated, let's say, for a block sale with one of the brokers or whatever, right? Then that in itself would also enhance theoretically the value of the share, because then you now have a seal of good housekeeping by having a marquee investor as part of your shareholder.
Good thing you clarify that, no? Kasi, the stock price, the market is down generally, no? And the stock price of DITO has gone down from its high. And you're offering at 488, somewhere around where it is being traded now.
And right now, nasa skeptical stage si DITO-CME. Malamang marami pa rin ang nagtatanong at may agam-agam na hindi alam kung anong risk level ratio management at anong investment projection nila kay DITO. Kung ang gagawin ba nila ay pang short-term trade, pang medium-term, or long-term ba? O for trading lang ba ang gagawin nila dito? Para maging panatag ka, kailangan mong ma-identify ang risk level ratio ng investment mo kay DITO-CME. So kung ikaw ay isang DITO-natics, DITO holders, and DITO-CME long-term investors, I encourage you guys na panoorin sa Call Financial YouTube channel yung dalawang uploaded webinar video clip na patungkol kay DITO-CME and digest the webinar content. At panigurado ako na makakapulot ka ng golden and in-depth fundamentals ni DITO-CME Holdings Corporation. At inuulit po natin, so I encourage you guys to dive into their channel Call Financial. A lot more than an hour free time to watch the complete webinar clip of DITO-CME. Napakaganda ng discussion nila about DITO. And you can pick up golden fundamentals of DITO-CME para makapag-decide kayo kung short term, medium term, or long term ang gagawin ninyong investment kay DITO-CME. It will helps you guys to decide kung kailangan na bang ibenta si DITO, iho-hold ba natin si DITO, or we need to buy the dip more. And the answer is there after watching the webinar clip of DITO-CME, and it's up to you to decide. At nakapin sa description box ng video na ito yung link ng webinar clip ni DITO-CME from Call Financial YouTube channel. So to watch it directly, you can proceed to the description box and click the link of webinar video clip ni DITO-CME Holdings Corporation. Okay, tuloy natin. Call Financial Research, stock rights offering DITO-CME Holdings Corporation, challenging the Philippine telco industry, dated January 20, 2022. At ipapaalala lang po natin na reminders lang po na itong ating video ay hindi po financial advice. Hindi rin po ito recommendation to buy, sell, or hold DITO-CME stock investment. Itong ating video ay for your information and for education purposes only. DITO-CME Holdings Corporation, the parent company of DITO Telecommunity, owns 53.7% of telco asset, with its wide reach in 240 cities and municipalities. DITO Telecommunity has over 4 million mobile subscribers, which are composed of 4G and 5G mobile users only as of end November year 2021. Aside from their telco business, DITO has wide array of digital services through its subsidiary, DCME Ventures, which holds the following companies: Luna Academy, Acuity Global, and Unalytics.
We have more than 200 questions. So, eto muna from Marco. As an investor, are we still on track for positive growth in the next 4 to 5 years? You're quoted as to be profitable in 5 years daw. Are we still on track? Quickly lang.
Quickly, typically startup telcos make a turn 3 to 4 years. No? Maybe more rapid if the market shift into digital is even more dynamic. Here in the Philippines, as I said, the prospects are good because we were the only country with only 2 mobile players, and the third player is one. So maybe Joe can give more color on the question.
No, it's pretty much consistent with what I was gonna say. Typically, again, we can't, for obvious reasons, we cannot give forward-looking statements, so we're not allowed, or we will violate disclosure rules. But typically, 4 years would be the general area where we would then turn into black, from red.
Yes.
That would be typical.
Sige.
Related to that would be the second question, I guess. Is that how you see
Let's try to answer it quickly para marami tayong masagot. Sige.
Again, I cannot tell you exactly where we will be 5 years or 10 years from now. That would be tantamount giving up our projections. No? But again, just ask yourself, maybe, because the investors are actually consumers. That's the unique thing about DITO-Tel, right? The investor is buying something which he himself can use. So the answer to that second question actually can be answered by each investor. Where would you buy telco? I mean, would you subscribe to DITO-Tel, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would keep you from subscribing? And the answer is that if you have better service, why not? So therefore, you ask yourself, in 5 years or 10 years, typically, would we get a third? Mathematically, we are a equal player. Equal, of course, we feel we are more than equal. But at the very least, right? We would be around a third.
Yeah.
Right? So the question is, will we get there?
Quickly, Eric.
Marvin, given the shift in technology, I think we have a good partner and we have a good chance. Because our partner is a leading force in the emerging technologies. That's inevitable.
Probability is high. Okay, good. Next.
Here are key points from our recent company update on DITO. Call Research View. According to DITO, the key to become a big player in telco industry is to cater to the elevated demand for internet data by capitalizing on the evolving cellular network technology. Number 1, they added that their strategic partnership with China Telecom, one of the largest global telecom companies, will help them accelerate their penetration into the market. Number 2, the third telco is aiming to reach 70% population coverage by July 2022 after hitting 53% as of September 2021. And number 3, DITO is conducting a stock rights offering SRO to generate additional capital to support the telco commercial rollout. Note that at the revised offer price of 4 pesos and 88 centavos per share, existing shareholders enjoy an 8.8% discount from the lower band of DITO's implied value according to Multinational Investment Bond Corporation Capital. DITO estimates of 5 pesos and 31 centavos per share and an 18.8% discount compared to its current price of 5 pesos and 80 centavos per share.
Okay, next. Thank you. Okay, dividends. Kailan daw kayo magbibigay ng dividends? Yung dalawa, magandang dividend payment.
Yeah, well, okay. Dividends is a function of profit. So in the first place, I think it is highly unlikely. Not unlikely. I think it goes without saying. Their profitability is not in the near-term prospect. And besides which, there is a term loan, and typically, term loan covenants would require certain things to happen before dividends are going to be released. So in other words, I guess what I'm saying is that if the intention of investing in DITO-CME is dividend yield, I think you should look somewhere else.
Having said that,
not in the short term. Not in the short term.
Being a formidable challenger to the space, in the first 2 years until that profit happens, you can see that there's continued commitment to roll out assets on the ground and gain ground. So there's what we are positively anticipating it will be capital asset appreciation.
Okay.
Yeah.
According to Call Financial Research, they are considering two risk factor ni DITO-CME. Number 1, the main risk is execution. It remains to be seen whether Dito Telecommunity can achieve its subscriber base and profitability goals given the mature and competitive mobile phone market. And number 2, also we believe that Dito may experience some challenges in funding its huge capital expenditures requirements for the next few years. At dahil believers at long-term holder tayo ni DITO-CME, kaya isa rin ako sa nag-participate ng kanyang stock rights offering SRO. Ang total entitled rights shares ko ay nasa 33,500 rights shares. Ang initial na kinuha natin ay 14,000 SRO shares noong January 10, 2022. Kaya may natirang 19,500 entitled SRO shares. At dahil extended yung rights offering SRO ni DITO-CME, nagkaroon pa tayo ng chance para i-cover up lahat yung natirang entitled 19,500 SRO shares natin. At kinuha natin ito noong January 17, 2022. So we accumulated a total of 33,500 entitled SRO shares ni DITO-CME Holdings Corporation. Ang SRO price ni DITO-CME ay nasa 4 pesos and 88 centavos at ang listing date nito ay on February 2, 2022. So sa February 2 natin makikita yung add-on SRO shares natin sa ating account portfolio. At para naman sa mga non-entitled SRO ni DITO-CME, pero kung nabantayan mo naman kung saan nag-local bottom si Dito noong January 10, 2022, almost umabot na ito sa SRO price offer dahil nag-low ito ng almost 4 pesos and 90 centavos. Kaya yung mga nakabili sa local bottom ay para na ring nag-participate ng stock rights offering ni DITO-CME.
The stock price, where the market is down generally, no, and the stock price of Dito has gone down from its high, and you're offering at 488, somewhere around where it is being traded now. It appears that. So my question really is, what is the market not really seeing? You were high at 18 pesos. Now we're only close to 5 pesos, and what is the market not seeing? Itong sinasabi mo, Jojo, di ba? Parang wala pa kasing nangyayari. I don't know, wala pa siguro nangyayari or people just speculated too early. What is the market? Why did you price it at 488 and it's there now, and what is the market not seeing?
Eric, you want to answer this? Or you want to
Well, okay. No. Okay, as Jojo pointed out earlier, the DITO-CME's SRO activity is to raise funds to shore up our share of the capital into the capital call with our partner China Telecom. No? In view of the continuing capital capex requirements of the telco, so that we can fulfill the network commitments and roll out of the telco. Now, having said that, when we are dealing with our lead underwriter, when we were talking about this, the price was typically stable already at about 8 peso range, 7.50 to 8 pesos. That's a few months ago. And then, you've got the resurgence of Delta that reared its ugly head until kailan ba yun? Hanggang mga June, di ba?
Yeah.
And then the market really dampened, low activity, continuing lockdown, di ba? After the Delta, lockdown na naman ng merkado. Diba? Only to open it up, and then ngayon, sometime in December, another variant has come to the fore, which we're now experiencing today. Diba? So at that time, what we really envisioned when we looked at the valuation, we were trying to benchmark against a 611 share swap transaction that we did and was approved by SEC and PSE, yung November of 2020, and that 611 valuation was based on an independent asset valuation, pure asset play. Wala pa naman commercial funds. sometime done in
611,
October of 2020.
611.
Yung 611 yung stock swap,
Pesos.
di ba?
6
Oh,
pesos.
611 pesos, di ba? Noong November of 2020. So that was based on an independent appraisal on assets that's been rolled out. So if you can imagine, Marvin, at 611, even prior to the commercial rollout, I think the market was in excited anticipation. It drove it all the way to 18. No? But then it had settled near about the 8 to 9 peso range. No? And then, of course, you know that there's continuing, and I think people see that, continuing non-stop rollout of the... Now, when we were talking about it, we were looking at the regional range of 611, thereabouts range, to allow the investors, retail and institutional investors, to be able to participate and catch up at the lower price, at a discount. Diba? But again, events have overtaken, and when we had to make a decision sometime, I recall December 17, andyan na yung ugly head ng Omicron, and the market is really, overall market is down, and the price is a dip, not only of DITO, but of all major issues, as you can see in the board right now. Diba? And then what we saw that to be able to get that discount, we had to price it at even more attractive price of 488 to, sabi namin 488 to 588, if I recall, at the top end. And then when we had to make the decision, we went for, at that time, we made the decision, the price was doing at 550 to 565, December 17. We went for, to be able to provide an attractiveness to the SRO, we went for the lower end of the price spectrum for 888, which we feel is a very attractive price, albeit that it's subjected to a lot of this negative and bearish conditions in the market.
At tingnan din natin yung record ni DITO-CME sa mga foreign investors natin. Ito yung record ni DITO last Friday, January 21, 2022. Nag-close ang presyo ni DITO sa 5 pesos and 30 centavos at down ito ng negative 3.46%. Pero kung papansinin natin, ang mga foreign investors meron itong net foreign buyers na 7.21 million. At dito naman sa history data ng mga foreign investors ni DITO-CME, mapapansin natin na nag-accumulate na sila ng volume of shares ni DITO. Dahil nakikita nilang nag-local bottom na si DITO sa kanyang strong support na 5 peso area. Kaya nagiging attractive ito sa mga foreign investors ni DITO. At silipin din natin yung weekly chart ni DITO-CME. Ang current price ni DITO-CME as of January 21, 2022 ay nasa 5 pesos and 30 centavos. At mapapansin natin sa kanyang weekly chart na 10 weeks na itong nag-hold at supported sa 5 peso area, kaya natin nasabi na very strong yung support niya sa level na ito. At mapapansin din natin sa Darbas box na nagkaroon ito ng series of candle support way back year 2019. At bago ito nagpump sa kanyang all-time high, makikita nating tinatch ng candle wick yung 5 peso support nito way back November year 2020.
So Eric, siguro last word to our viewers now.
Well, on behalf of DCME and my colleagues, many thanks to you, Marvin, and Cole, and to all your customer audience. No, thank you for joining. I know that I think we hit about 1,000 audience today. Maraming salamat. I think what we're saying here is that even before we started, we already contributed to public service and good by keeping the competition in the market healthy. Again, we have committed ownership from the Filipino side and also on the foreign side in China Telecom. Very formidable with the technical expertise to bring forth the mission on hand into fruition and success. So this is not as I mentioned in many interviews, hindi naman to sprint. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it will go through the marathon. I think what is important is that we stick to the milestones and achieve those. And hopefully with this webinar and similar undertakings, the public will better appreciate and understand what we do and the progress which we do. Salamat, Marvin. Thank you for this opportunity.
With that, maraming salamat, Eric, Jojo.
Thank you.
Donald,
Thank you.
Luis.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Keep safe.
Thank you.
Keep safe,
Stay safe,
everyone.
everyone.
Salamat.
Allow me to close this session to give you some of our key takeaways. As we heard from DITO, is continue to perform within their targets so far, no? And hopes to become the third telco and offer better telecom service in the country. While the market may seem to be fully penetrated by the PLDT and Globe existing players, service improvement is much to be desired. And from this conversation, we hear that they have a lot of service to offer, a lot more service to offer. We actually saw that activity of eating the current market share through Converge, diba? Through the broadband. And the technology is moving fast. What generates revenues today may not be generating later, and you really have to keep up with times. But to achieve this third telco, however, DITO will have to make huge investments requiring strong support from the parent company as well as strong support from China Telecom. To be profitable in 5 years, as they say, as they target, implementation, of course, for its demanding infrastructure layout will remain key. We will just have to keep a close eye on the group and see if they indeed been able to realize their targets and generate profits and cash flows and dividends that will eventually benefit the shareholders. In looking at this investment, we are reminded of what our Chief Technical Analyst, Juanis Barredo, shared to us, to the COL community before, regarding the life cycle of new businesses, their company stock price cycle, so to speak. For new businesses, they go through an exploratory phase and move to a business phase. We see the behavior of the stock price through the journey of this cycle. From the speculative period where we see the stock price rise to new highs, and then speculators leave, moving to the orphan period, we see the stock price drop to a period of very low interest. Then they now move to when the real business and real production kicks in. Revenues come in, income is generated, attracting now the institutional investors. We saw that in Globe, for example, from the early parts of the history, from the speculation to the orphan period, where there was no interest until actual business production kicks in. And the rest is history. We saw strong support from their parent company, Ayala Corp, and their partner, Singapore Telecom, but they had to go through many, many challenges, and it took them many, many years before getting to where they are today. Now, are we going to see that in DITO? Are we now in the orphan period where there is no interest? The questions are, will they be able to implement their plans? Will they get the needed support from parent and China Telecom? Will they generate profits and attract institutional investors in the future? So those are really the questions only time will tell. We have heard what the people behind the company has presented. They answered your questions. I hope we have given you information to help in your investment decision. Like what we always remind investors, manage risk through proper allocation and always invest with long-term in mind. On our part, we will continue to follow the developments of the company, especially their expansion program and how effective they are in delivering. And we will share them with you through our updates and research reports. Today's event video will be shared through our social media channels. We will also give you highlights of our research via email. And for those who want to continue getting our invites in the future in call conversation, sign up through bit.ly/COL Conversations events so you can get our invitation. So with that, thank you for watching. This has been Marvin Fausto. See you in our next conversation.
Alright, at yan ang ating PSE Stock Update Series number 11 para kay DITO-CME Holdings Corporation ngayong January 22, 2022. Magkita ulit tayo sa ating kasunod na video. Once again, have a happy weekend Saturday. Always stay safe and God bless. Hanggang sa muli.